All right, so everybody's been asking about the list, some of the matches, play lines, and everything going on with the Modern Challenge on Saturday. So 2 days ago now, that we somehow managed to take down with Grix's Jund Shadow. So I wanted to take a minute, go over the deck, go over card choices, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a audio overlay of all the matches, show you how those went down, show you what happened, maybe help out with some of your decision making in the future. So for the deck, most of the list is pretty standard now, talking about things like 4 Shadow, 4 Tarmogoyf, 4 Scourge of the Skyclaves, 2 Battle Rage, 3 Inquisition, 4 Thoughtseize, 4 Lightning Bolt, to a lesser extent 4 Fatal Push, at least 2 or 3 Hex Drinker. Some of the flex spots in this list, 1 copy of Dismember. I've been trying out Kolaghan's Command recently in this spot, but felt like I wanted the cheaper interaction because of decks like Prowess, where losing a little bit of life to get a creature off the board is better than having a 3 mana, only 2 damage spell sitting in our hand. Seal of Fire and Grim Lavamancer. So Grim Lavamancer replaced the 4th Hex Drinker. I think Hex Drinker is great, but sometimes you just want the ability to knock off a guy, and that ends up showing up this event. So keep an eye out for that. And then Seal of Fire, another way to get things like Swift Spear off the board, opposing Hex Drinkers, Sprite Dragons, Luris, and Dark Confidant. So important thing to note about Dark Confidant, is that it's not replacing another threat. We still have the full 4 Scourge, 4 Goy, 4 Shadow, 4 1-drops. And then this Confidant's an additional slot that could be like a second Dismember or a Kolaghan's Command, something like that. So whenever anybody is concerned about having a threat that dies to Lava Dart, don't think about this as a threat. Think about this as a potential card advantage engine late game. It's not what we're wanting to do on turn 2. We're not wanting to play that grindy card draw element out just blind on turn 2. We're wanting to play it after we've gotten our stuff on board, after we're getting the pressure going, to kind of keep the gas flowing. Out of the board, we'll get to the interesting one last. 2 Kozilek's Return, pretty standard right now. Kolaghan's Command, great for the grindy mid-range matchups. Same with Kroxa. 2 Soul Guide Lantern is our Grave Hate. 2 Tend the Pest, card that people have asked about a lot. It's great in the 1-for-1 removal matchups. Things like the Mirror, Esper Control, the Bring to Light decks. Being able to not only blank an opponent's piece of spot removal, but invalidate future pieces of spot removal is a huge deal. So things like Fatal Push, Archmage's Charm, Stealing a Shadow, Kaya's Guile, any of those kind of spells, Tend the Pest is great against. Assassin's Trophy for everything from Tron land hate to annoying permanent and Snaring Bridge hate. Opposing creatures like out of Prowess, the Mirror, Veil of Summer for the targeted removal matchups. And then this funky card over here, Liliana's Triumph. So for anybody who doesn't know, Liliana's Triumph, 1 and a black, instant, I believe from War of the Spark. I'll have to double check that. But each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. Second half of that, irrelevant. We don't have any Liliana Planeswalkers. The first half, relevant for 2 reasons. One, it's an instant speed edict effect, which with the rise of the blue-red through the breach decks is extremely nice right now. As you can see, this deck doesn't really have a lot of game against the resolve through the breach for an Emrakul. So it gives us like this backdoor out to that. In addition, it does say each opponent. It doesn't target, so it gets around Veil of Summer and things like the Mirror. So keep an eye on that because it does come up a few times this event. So that's the main deck and sideboard. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below, and we'll be sure to get to them. So let's get to the event. I'm gonna cover it up and make it all secretive. Alright, so match number 1, we lose the die roll. Show our Pokemon. Our opening 7, not very exciting. We can't turn on this Scourge. We don't have any like Lightning Bolts or Lavamancer type effects. We can't cast this Hex Drinker, and the only way that we can is by drawing our 4th land. We don't really want to be at 4 lands. So, I'm going to ship this one back. Second one, nothing going on here. Just sitting on this peat land, hoping that it works out. So we're going to ship that back as well. Third hand we see we're going to keep. This one's pretty good. We've got threats. We've got lands. Got spell. So looking at this one, pretty likely to ship back the swamp and the second Tarmogoyf. Could very well keep the second Tarmogoyf over the Scourge. But if this Goyf gets to connect once, then the likelihood of this Scourge being able to race pretty well is very high. Because if we look at the Blood Crypt plus the Verdant Catacombs, losing ourselves 5 life, at the very least we can take 3 off of our opponent. And if this Tarmogoyf gets to hit, we're looking at 3, maybe 4 more. So getting this Scourge up to at least a 5/5 in the first few turns will definitely help end the match. So we see Bloodstained Mire, Mountain, Swift Spear. So first 2 thoughts are either Burn or Prowess. Like, Prowess might be a little more likely to fetch up a Steam Vents here, but we can't know for sure. We bobble our opponent, see a Lava Dart, so immediately it's Prowess. And if it's Prowess, I want to kill this guy on my turn. So if they have a mutagenic growth, they have to use it now, which of course they do. But we get that out of hand. And since we're on a mold of 5, we kind of have to pick our poison. And the poison I'm choosing to pick is that our opponent doesn't have a threat-heavy hand and can't just, like, punish us for that first removal spell not hitting. So they have a Sprite Dragon here, which is still better for us than Stormwing Entity. We draw a Fatal Push, which is fantastic. Looking for a line here to get down a threat and then potentially double spell next turn. I could go ahead and Fatal Push the Sprite Dragon, but I think I would rather get on the board. Because again, we're on this mold of 5, and if I just keep playing too reactive, then my lack of cards is going to catch up with me. But if my opponent is like flooded a little bit, then maybe I set up a situation where I can slow down the pressure by getting a board presence. But they do have Lightning Bolt, which between that and the Lava Dart means they're going to be able to outgrow this Tarmogoyf. An opponent does see that line. So now I've got a 3/3 Scourge, a Fatal Push, and a Dream. So getting out this Sprite Dragon here, because if they want to bolt it, they have to pay a life off this Fiery Islet, which will grow the Scourge to a 4/4. Then not really anything I'm scared of on their turn that I couldn't deal with on my turn. They start off with Expressive Iteration, which is really good for me because I'm hoping this A means they don't have a third land and like can't cast anything to punish me here. or B, they just don't have any gas going. They exile Vapor Snag, which pretty much means I'm dead, and have the third land. So they pick up game number 1, go into game number 2. I don't get to show sideboarding, but some of the things that I'm bringing in are cards like Liliana's Triumph, Assassin's Trophy. I'm boarding out like Grim Lavamancer, Seal of Fire, because the 2 damage is pretty irrelevant against 1/2s. They just need a single prowess trigger to outgrow it. Also boarding out a Teamer Battle Rage, because I don't want to get into a Battle Rage position where Vapor Snag is relevant. And then final spots are usually like Dark Confidant and some number of Hex Drinkers for cards like Hex Drinkers and Confidant for cards like Croxa, maybe Attend the Pests. I've got the 2 Triumphs and the 2 Trophies. I think it ends up looking like 2 Triumph, 2 Trophies, Croxa, and a single Tend the Pests for Battle Rage, Lavamancer, Seal of Fire, Confidant, 2 Hex Drinkers. Come on. Game already up somewhere? It is. Alright, so opening 7, pretty good. We've got a Lightning Bolt, a Triumph, a Shadow, got some lands, got a redraw. Can't really ask for much more. We'll just play Bobble and pass. We don't know how aggressive we want to be with our life total just yet. I always love to see my Prowess opponent fetch and shock, because it means that future Scourges are going to be better. Alright, bobble ourselves and see a Fatal Push. Obviously we want a Fatal Push, so we'll keep that around. Draw into a Battle Rage, which with this little Death Shadow waiting in the wings could end the game very quickly. So I decide to Lightning Bolt here because if my opponent goes for a Stormwing entity, they have to tap out on their turn to do it, and I've got the Triumph. Otherwise, Lightning Bolt is like my least impactful removal spell. So if I have a chance to go ahead and use it for value, I want to. Like, I understand that it can be used against a Stormwing later, but the odds are they're going to have more of these 1-mana creatures, and so I'd rather get like the not guaranteed use out of the Lightning Bolt, but pretty certain use out of it. So here, 3 mana, I don't have anything I really want to do. Let's just add Lurrus to our hand. Our opponent's stuck on 1 land, so if they don't do anything relevant, maybe I just play Lurrus and bobble. They come in with the Swift Spear. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I would hold up Triumph. So hold up the Triumph here so we can take care of this Swift Spear if we want, but we can also aggressively use this Shadow to block and just Lurrus it back next turn. So opponent goes on this fun little dance of whether or not they want to attack, which was pretty fun to watch. Like, they were doing all this in game, and I was getting a kick out of it. All right, so Triumph just to ease the pressure on the board. Draw into a Dismember, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, it puts us, I believe, 1 off lethal. We can pay 2 life, go to 9, dismember, go to 5. Shadow becomes an 8/8. Battle Rage puts them down to 1. But I put myself down to 5 to do that. So instead, I decided to pay 2 life plus the 2 here. And the reason for that is I go to 7, which is important against 2 lands. We know that they just top deck their 2nd land. So getting down to 7 means I'm not dead to double bolt. We get Luris Bauble going. Here I'm expecting a Stormwing, which we do get after the Lightning Bolt. But because of this Battle Rage plus our 2 peat lands, opponent's pretty dead. Triumph for good measure, and they scoop to the Triumph. They don't know about the Battle Rage, but we got a Shadow outright. Alright, so game 3. No real changes on the play versus the draw against Prowess, sideboard wise. So this hand, we don't have a threat, but we've got a lot of really good interaction. We've got both of these lightning bolts that can answer a Stormwing entity, plus Assassin's Trophy. We've got Inquisition to take things like an additional threat, an expressive iteration, Vapor Snag if we find a guy. Then we got Mishra's Bauble as a redraw. So it's not thrilling, but it's definitely a keep. Alright, so 3rd land, not the most thrilling. We bobble them and see Vapor Snag on top. Here, I decided to Inquisition instead of Lightning Bolt because I'd rather just stop a Stormwing entity from coming down on turn 2. We see Swift Spear. We know they have the Vapor Snag on top. Stormwing, 2nd Swift Spear. Now I know that if they play out this Swift Spear, I've got double bolt available. If they want to Vapor Snag their own Swift Spear, I'm pretty fine with that. Go like that. Getting a little flooded here, but the important thing is that we've got their threats answered. So they decided to just let the 2nd Swift Spear go. And now I know they've got Stormwing, Vapor Snag, Unknown. And if they don't find like a Manamorphose or a Gut Shot or something like that, then I don't have to worry about Stormwing right now. So I could Thoughtseize this Stormwing, but my thought is they didn't play it last turn. I can kind of take this turn off just to add Luris. I don't think I have to fight over this Stormwing right now. Like, they're gonna kind of need to find a spot to Vapor Snag plus Stormwing. But as we can see, that Stormwing is no longer an issue. So pretty easy to get Luris down here. At least at the moment we know that they can't kill it. So iteration, hoping to dodge a lightning bolt effect, but opponent finds a Wild Slash. It's pretty fun because that's a card we were testing out in some Shadow variants recently. Really great against the Auriok Champion decks. Alright, so pick up Bobble and Push. The Lava Dart. Like, okay, it's not the most thrilling at this point. We just kind of want to find a threat. So we wait for their draw step. The Soul Scar. They immediately draw into, which is good for us because of this Fatal Push. Decided to let that go. They're definitely way more afraid of our threats than they are of protecting their own. But we do find a Goyf. Means we got a clock, especially one that's not easily lightning bolted. Got perfect information about their hand. At this point, my goal is to try to not go down to 8 life, because I don't really want to be dead to like double bolt plus lava dart. So if I can avoid that, I feel pretty comfortable here. So they find Sprite Dragon. And they go for this pretty aggressive Vapor Snag here. Which I get to an extent, because if I don't have a removal spell, then they're just like killing me next turn with everything they've got going on. And I decide to go to this Dismember because I have this opportunity to get everything out of their hand. And I know that I've got the last answer with Trophy. So they do go all in on this Sprite Dragon. And we kill it. They do bounce my Tarmogoyf, but now they are completely empty-handed. And I've got a Tarmogoyf and a Battle Rage. So that was an interesting no block. My thought was I'm completely okay if they chump with the Soul Scar. I don't think they're going to. But the reason I say interesting is I kind of underestimated how much they could do off one draw. And we'll kind of see that here. They start off with an Opt, and immediately it's like, okay, they can find a Lightning Bolt and put me to 1. They can find a Lava Dart and put me to 1. Any of their burn spells put me within burn range. But if they don't kill me right here, then I'm killing them on the crackback with the Battle Rage. They find this Islet, crack it, start to pay cost, but don't. So I'm wondering what could they have here that they were paying cost but didn't. They tap for blue right there. So my immediate thought is Vapor Snag. Like, has to be a Vapor Snag. Fortunately, with my current hand, I think I beat Vapor Snag because I can Inquisition, force them to fire it off, and then replay the Tarmogoyf. But it's an iteration, which makes sense why they would hold it off, try to start the chain next turn. But either way, we're just going to Battle Rage a Tarmogoyf and get in for lethal. So that's match number 1. Let's get going with match number 2. Another lost die roll. So this 7's okay. We've got Scourge as our only threat, but we've got good disruption. We've got ways to enable Scourge or removal, whichever way we see more necessary. The opponent starts off with Snow-Covered Island, which my first thought is like some sort of Bant, Ephemerate, Ice Fang Coatl kind of deck. But clearly, that is not the case. So they kept a 7 with, or was it a 7? Might have been a 6. It was a 6, yeah. A 6 with 4 lands through the breach Emrakul. So we take the through the breach. And now the goal is to get a threat somewhere. So since they don't currently have a lightning bolt in hand, and I know off of that bauble that they're not drawing into one, I decided just to go ahead and try to jam this shadow down. They did have an opt, which is a little terrifying because if they find a lightning bolt, then this whole plan kind of goes up in smoke. So decided to go ahead and try to get my 3 in. Like Archmage's Charm is pretty rough for us as well, because if they just like steal our shadow and we don't deal any damage, we've got a bit of a problem. They Prismari Command and just find another through the breach. So we are pretty dead there. As we said in the deck tech earlier, this deck cannot beat an Emrakul on the battlefield. Luckily, we've got some pretty good tech for it. Let's bring the list up over here so we can kind of move it back and forth. You can see that. So for the Through the Breach matchup, we've got things like Kroxa to bring in, Liliana's Triumph, as we noted earlier. But I'm also bringing in Kolaghan's Command and Assassin's Trophy. The reason for this, let's go over to the modern meta game. The reason for this is this part. Most of these Through the Breach decks are boarding into the Madcap package as well. So having additional answers for Platinum Empyrean is very, very relevant. Alright, so game 2, I've got an opener. I've got Liliana's Triumph in hand. So the goal here is to get on the board, get some pressure going. Gonna start cracking in with some snakes. Obviously, this is a little bit weaker against things like Lightning Bolt, but I've got this Veil of Summer to protect a snake if they decide to like Archmage's Charm it. Or in this case, Blind Flash and a Snapcaster. So they do have the Archmage's Charm. This hand's a little bit awkward because like I've already got my threats down, so I don't really care about Remand. They don't have an Emrakul right now or a way to find it. So I'm just going to take the Archmage's Charm. Kind of hope that they don't top deck one right here and I get to keep these Hex Drinkers turning sideways. It's kind of funny that we saw all 3 Hex Drinkers this game. They go for the Remand here. I say sure. I decide not to play the Shadow and just sit on this Triumph. It's kind of early in the blue-red breach process, so for all I know, there could be a variation with like Pyretic or Desperate Ritual out there. And I feel like I'm doing a decent job of playing around that and don't really need to overextend into it. So they do find the Emrakul and we get our first dose of Liliana's Triumph on an Emrakul. So we Inquisition just for the sideboard information there. We see that they actually had a second Emrakul and a second Through the Breach. So like their blind draw plus remand draw were end draw for turn were remand, or not remand, Emrakul Madcap Experiment. I was like, huh, that's pretty good, but I'm going to kill you here. So we take down game 2, go into game 3. No changes again between playing the draw here. You can kind of see it there, some of the things we boarded out, like Lavamancer, Seal of Fire aren't doing anything. Boarded out all 4 pushes plus Dismember. Like, the only targets for any of these cards are Snapcaster Mage, but we still have Lightning Bolts in the deck. So I'd rather lean on Lightning Bolt. I boarded out a land because I don't want to get mana flooded here. I'd rather stay like low to the ground and utilize my advantage. Boarded in things like the 2 Liliana's Triumph, 2 Assassin's Trophy, K Command, the 2 Veil of Summers. So that's kind of where we're at here. Alright, so the hand has decent creatures. We can get on the board early, and we've got a Triumph. So even if Shadow's not really enabled and Scourge isn't going to be too big, I think it's a pretty clear keep. But we do draw the Thoughtseize, which sees a couple lands, Snapcaster, Bolt. I decided to take the Opt because I think that I can beat this, but I don't think I can beat them just like finding Emrakul and Through the Breach. So I just want to limit their ability to see more cards. And there they go for the double bolt, which is kind of what I expected. So here we'll just get out a couple threats. They can Snapcaster Bolt 1 if they want to. I'm just trying to get through all of the stuff in their hand. Like, I think that at this point, my threats are winning the game. So I just want to get my threats on board. So I'm going to attack him with the Snapcaster, which means I'm fine not having to level up my my Hex Drinker last turn and just get in some extra damage. Get in a little level there. Decide to hold up the Lightning Bolt in case they like Archmage's Charm my Hex Drinker. I can kill it. They do go for Bolt my Scourge, which means I get to bolt them and keep my Scourge around. Liliana's Triumph looking not the greatest here. So this is an interesting point. I decide not to level up the Hex Drinker again because I want them to trade off a Snapcaster for the Hex Drinker. I want to clear the board up so that this Triumph can hit an Emrakul or Platinum Empyrean or something like that. And it kind of works here. Like, I didn't really think it was going to work, but we got fortunate. But third Snapcaster Opt is pretty scary. It's like the immediate thought is, okay, they untap, and if their last 2 cards... It's kind of a calculated risk, right? Like, they get to untap with 3 cards, and if they have land Through the Breach Emrakul, then I die. And my hope is that they just haven't had enough chances to filter their draws to have that sequence. So here we've got the Triumph. They've got the Snapcaster. So if they find an Emrakul here, not a whole lot I can do about it. But my hope is that if I can get my opponent to chump with this this Snapcaster here, that this Triumph is going to be live for the rest of the game. So we've got Archmage's Charm, Steal the Shadow. I decided to go ahead and fire off this, or no, I wait until after the Inquisition. It's like they have to block this, which means I know I'm going to get to Triumph away their second creature, whatever it is. Level up Hexdrinker. They don't have any good attacks. I'm just hoping to fade a natural top-decked Emrakul. But since they don't have one here, I can try. Like their block is forced there on the Scourge, but because I'm blocking or attacking with everything, I do get some damage in. Like, the goal here is just to clear the board of all of their guys so that I can Triumph and Emrakul if it comes down. Archmage's Charm whiffs, and that is match number 2. Alright. Match number 3. 0 for 3 on die rolls. Doing really well in that category. 5 lands, not really where we want to be. The 1 lander, triple Fatal Push. So I decide to keep this one and throw back the Scourge, mainly because on the off chance that they're on a small creature deck, like a Heliod or a Heliod, a Zoo, a Shadow Mirror, something like that, this hand has some potential game to it. And when they start off with Swift Spear, I'm thinking, like, please, please, please don't have a Stormwing entity. And crap, they've got a Stormwing entity. But they don't. So now I'm super confused. Because their hand was not great. They kept like a bunch of lands, Manamorphose, Mutagenic Dart. My thought here is if I can find a second land, like, I can very likely win this game. It's kind of like the race is, can I find a second land before they find a Stormwing entity? Because obviously with our current set of cards, I don't think we're beating Stormwing. Oh. Short-lived. Find 4th Fatal Push. Probably not going to be good enough. We do find 4th land. So the hope here is maybe we can top deck a Battle Rage. If they don't kill us here. Which is unfortunately a big ask. So they can, what happens here is they dart us again down to 7. They've got one more dart down to 6, which makes this Stormwing a 6/6 exactly, and we just die. But luckily, we've got 2 more games here. All right, kind of like the last time we saw Prowess in round 1. A couple lightning bolts and a Scourge. pretty decent start. We bobble ourselves and see a Battle Rage. I tank for a second and decide I don't really want that right now. I don't know how big this Scourge is going to get and how quickly. So, decide not to Lightning Bolt. I'd rather Seal of Fire if I can here. And I get rewarded by drawing a Fatal Push. So now, not only do I have another removal spell for like another Swift Spear or Stormwing or Sprite Dragon or something. But I get to save these bolts. Which we get to see come up here. Because now I get to play out Scourge. Hold up Lightning Bolt, so if my opponent goes to bolt my Scourge, I can just say, you know what, bolt you instead. And keep my Scourge around. Or just make them commit a lot of resources to Scourge while I still have Lurrus as a companion option. Alright. So I think about bolting the Stormwing into turn here. The issue is if I go for like bolt the Stormwing and they go bolt your Scourge, I get absolutely blown out. Like not a chance if that happens. So instead we're going to Thoughtseize them and we see that they would have survived the bolt on the Stormwing. So, get our attack on, because if they want to block, we can bolt them. Bolt the Stormwing, they've got Lava Dart. And we just bolt the Stormwing again. Most important thing right here is just keeping the board clear. Like, they don't have a way currently of dealing with this Scourge. So I just want to make sure that I can have the biggest thing on the board for as long as possible. There's Relic. I was a little bit surprised at the Relic bring in. I feel like that's not a card that Prowess should be particularly interested in this matchup. Like, I get that it helps kill Tarmogoyfs and stuff like that, but still seems a little underwhelming for me. Alright. So get Lurrus to hand. Decide to hold on to this Verdant Catacombs to bluff. Whatever. Yeah, they dart my face and then crack that Relic. Bolt me is a little bit terrifying. I think, like, I passed the turn and my thought is, oh, they've got 3 cards, 3 mana. They can absolutely bolt. And then they bolt me and I say, dang. And then play Stormwing, which is not great for me, but fine. We get down a second Scourge, and the hope here is that they just don't have enough gas to keep these 2 Scourges at bay. Do find a couple chump blockers. They're relegated to a quick death. And Manamorphose finds nothing. So we win that game to go to game number 3. Gotta blow my nose while we think about this mulligan decision. Alright, hope you thought about the mulligan decision. It's an interesting one. Like, the threats are good. If they deal a little bit of damage to themselves, it could be a very positive hand. But ultimately, we're not making sure that our Skirtas are online, we have to deal a bunch to ourselves to get our Shadow online, and our removal, like our interaction there, is not exactly top tier. Fatal Push is obviously really good for like Soulscar Mage, Swiftspear, Sprite Dragon, but Stormwing Entity is the issue. We have to have a way to kill that card. So the second 7 that we see does have Lightning Bolt and Assassin's Trophy that can both kill Stormwing. It's got a Fatal Push. It's got this Kroxa awkwardly sitting around. So I decided to keep it and just bottom the Kroxa. I don't think a blind discard on turn 2 is where I want to be. Opponent keeps 7. We bobble them and see a land. So I decided to just go ahead and kill this Swiftspear. Like, most of the time when you see me killing something on my turn, it's because I don't want to play into my opponent having Spell Pierce. So if I can just like go ahead and make sure it's dead now, that's a much better proposition for me. So see Mutagenic Growth on the top of their library. Thoughtseize gets to take away second threat. Oh, I know this gets to die to a Lightning Bolt. Now I've got this Triumph, and I'm feeling pretty okay here as long as I can find the third land. We find another iteration. I don't know if you guys know, but this deck has like an uncanny ability to keep finding guys. And especially the best guys at the most annoying times possible. So, while we are sitting here wanting a green source, our opponent's getting this Stormwing online. The bright side is they hit us with this Stormwing and we do get to get a Shadow down. So that's gone. I'm a little bit surprised at this decision to just go ahead and Mutagenic Growth the Stormwing. Like I just showed you Liliana's Triumph. But it's pretty easy to go in on it if you've got the backup. So now we're what the kids would call pretty dead. So yeah, that's match 3. And thus begins one of the best premier event runs that I've had in a while. So we lose match 3 to Prowess and go into match 4 with a metaphorical chip on our shoulder. We've got to win out to top 8. There's, I believe, 7 rounds of Swiss. So we just got to win 4 in a row here. And that's about all we can say, really. Alright, so opponent reveals Eldrazi. So the immediate thought is, okay, is it a Shadow Mirror? Is it Mill? Is it Luris Sultai Control? And then I remember the name, Crusherbot. So for anybody who doesn't know, Crusherbot was one of the forefathers of the Hammertime decks, and has played a lot of hours with those. So I'm going off the blind assumption that it's Hammertime. So obviously we look at this opening hand, pretty good against Hammertime. We've got a Lavamancer, we've got red mana, we've got ways to start getting our graveyard full. Yeah, pretty good. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to get down to Lavamancer and see if we're right. And we are. which does not bode particularly well for our opponent. So I could get down a Tarmogoyf here, but the exponential growth of the Scourge is much higher than that of the Tarmogoyf here. So I feel like if I can get this Scourge down and get in one attack, then I've got a reasonable chance of battle raging them out of this game. So, because they get this Stoneforge here, I don't think they're going to block with the Stoneforge on this Scourge. And I end up being right, so that not really a bluff pays off. Alright, so my opponent taps down completely, which means I've got a free kill here. So, for anybody who's wondering, oh, what do you mean free kill? Like, you battle rage a Scourge here, they're not dead. I can Lavamancer myself. I can put myself at 13, grow this Scourge up to a 7/7, and untap and battle rage them. Like, it means I don't get to use Lavamancer anymore this game, but that doesn't really matter when they're just dead, right? So we go with that plan. Opponent scoops, and we go to game 2. Most of our sideboarding in this matchup, we're boarding out on a little bit of the awkward part. So, like, Temur Battle Rage, we bring out a copy because of things like Path to Exile and Fatal Push out of our opponent's deck. Bring out a couple Hex Drinkers. They get stonewalled by 98% of their deck. Then board out an Inquisition because they're usually pretty aggressive at getting their hand out onto the board. So those late-game hand disruption, even mid-game hand disruption spells get a lot worse. We're boarding in things like Assassin's Trophy, to deal with troublesome equipment. We're boarding in Kozilek's Return for Auriok Champions in the Go Wide games, and we're boarding in K-Command. So it's kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boarding out a Scourge because of Auriok Champion, and boarding in 2 Assassin's Trophy, 2 Kozilek's Return, and a Kolaghan's Command. So, let's take a look at our 7. 1 land, not really where we want to be, so we're going to ship that back. This hand, it's got good interaction. We've got a couple spot removal spells. We've got an answer to Auriok Champion. We've got hand disruption. Worst case scenario, we can get Lurrus to our hand. So we're gonna keep this bottom of the peat lane because I don't know how aggressive I want to be with my life total. Opponent goes Mishra's Bauble, crack on our upkeep, pass. We Thoughtseize. We see Plains, Yawgmoth, Pure Steel, Paladin. So one legal target here. Let's take that one. Here, I could blind Thoughtseize and hope to hit something, but I'm just going to save it for Lurrus. The Steel Shaper's Gift for a Boots. That could be a little bit annoying. I do have some spot removal here, so I think I should be able to play around the Boots pretty well. We immediately draw this Shadow, and I've got the thought here. I know that the Plains and Yawgmoth are down. I know they've got a Plains in hand and 2 unknowns, and I think, all right, if I wait for the Lurrus and I Thoughtseize it, they could have like a Fatal Push or a Path to Exile right here, and I get kind of punished. And I feel like if I answer the Lurrus when it comes down, that's fine, because they're either Lurrusing into a Bauble and then Lurrus is dying to Dismember or Bolt, or they're waiting 2 turns and I'm getting in some damage, and then they're Lurrusing back a Pure Steel Paladin and they're still dying to Dismember and Bolt. So I decided to go ahead and fire off this Thoughtseize. And lo and behold, what do I see? Wrath of God. So, I don't know how much everybody knows about the Hammertime deck, but it's pretty common to see cards like Memnite and Ornithopter, Pure Steel Paladin, Stoneforge Mystic, Auriok Champion, Lurrus of the Dream Den, the occasional, what's his name, the core that equips, Armament Master? I can't remember. Wrath of God is not really a card I would expect to see out of them, and yet here we are. So we're gonna take that and get down this shadow and like contemplate everything we once knew about the world. So there is the Lurrus to hand, and one of these said creatures that dies to a Wrath of God. So we're just going to get aggressive and dismember this. Pretty thankful to our opponent for playing out something so quickly that we get to target. Scourge is an excellent draw. Now we can play Scourge, hold up Bolt. We're also just representing lethal next turn. So Lurrus plus Pure Steel. And we've got the Kozilek's return to sweep up the game. So we just decide to bolt ourselves as a little bit of a flex move. And then Kozilek's return wipes everything up. So that was match number 4. We're now 3-1 on the day. Coming into match 5, another lost die roll. We're doing really well in that department, if y'all didn't know. Hand's pretty horrible. Hand's pretty okay. Like, I think a lot of people have this idea that Lavamancer and Tarmogoyf just like can't play well together at all. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't think they're great together, but I think they really shine in different matchups. For instance, when I see Tron land, Lavamancer goes out the window. This is basically like a fatal push at this point. Not really doing anything. So instead of Lavamancer, I'm going to focus on dealing damage so I can get Scourge as big as I can, as quick as I can, and try to push through lethal. As soon as they go Sanctum, my thought is, okay, they kept a pretty not great Tron hand. I was like, you expect your Tron opponent to keep a 7 with ways to get natural Tron, but when you see Power Plant Map followed up by Sanctum, then it immediately becomes like, I don't know why you kept this hand. Then they get a Temple, and we realize that it is no longer Urzatron. And now, again, for a second time this event, I'm questioning everything I know about the universe. So, Sanctum of Ugin is a land that whenever you cast a really big colorless spell, you can sack it and go get a colorless creature. So it's extremely popular in Urzatron because you can sacrifice it off things like Karn Liberator, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Ulamog, and go and get things like Wormcoil or another Ulamog, something like that. But you don't usually see it out of Eldrazi Tron for the main reason that it's not reliable. You don't play that many 7-mana spells. It's like All Is Dust, and that's usually about it. So, opponent does find a Thought Knot. They take Tarmogoyf, which I think is a little interesting. At the moment, Tarmogoyf's at 3-4. So I feel like it's one that you shouldn't be that worried about. But they do. We blind rip with the lightning bolt, which is like one of the best draws we can have right now, because now we get to attack into this thought knot. They choose to block. We get the lightning bolt. Does a handy job of finding us a second lightning bolt.
All right. I'll tell you the truth.
So they get Karn. We say cool. We've got a few different ways we could kill them here. We could battle rage a Scourge like we did and just hit them for 15. We could also just lightning bolt their face, put them down to 12, and then both of our Scourges would be 8/8s. That would be lethal. But either way, opponent goes from positive number to negative number, and usually that means that we won that game. So going to game 2, sideboarding includes things like boarding out pushes, boarding out Lavamancer and Seal. You'll see this a lot against like bigger mana and control decks where these cards just aren't that great. Board out an Inquisition, because again, especially with Sanctum of Ugin, most of their deck is going to be higher on the CMC side. We're boarding in things like Kolaghan's Command, Assassin's Trophy. I board in a single copy of 10 the Pest just to have a little extra play against Karn the Great Creator for Ensnaring Bridge. I boarded in... what else? Boarded in Liliana's Triumphs to deal with the bigger guys. Boarded in Kroxa. And yeah, that's all of our board plan. Hand is like, it's got the 2 Tarmogoyfs and a Mishra's Bauble, so at the very least we can like get threats out onto the board, but overall not very exciting. This hand, we enable everything, but we don't have a threat currently. I decided to keep it just for the sake that we're not going to die. And if we find any threat in any amount of time, any amount of time, then we'll be able to run away with it. Guess this is a little far over. You'll have to forgive me for the first couple of matches. So we find our threat. Now we've just got the matter of like getting our threat online. We Thoughtseize them, see Chalice of the Void, Spatial Contortion, which is a little bit annoying because now we can't just bolt and play our Scourge. But they do have a Dismember, which is pretty great for us. And we'll kind of show why in a bit. Alright, so we get down Scourge here. And this is why I'm saying that Dismember is a little bit great for us. It's because once they get below, if we're below 15 life and they are below 18, then Dismember can't kill a Scourge unless they have something like Urborg in play. Because they're going to have to pay 4 life, dropping them down to at least 14, which grows Scourge to at least an 8/8. Or not 8/8, 6/6. Math. So they decided to take up the Blast Zone. Walking Ballista on 1 is fine. So I decided to play the Hex Drinker here. Just kind of like incentivize them to crack this Walking Ballista now, which they do not. We draw into Luris. They've got second Dismember, which means that they can dismember the Hex Drinker if they want to, but that's going to make Scourge lethal. So I'm going to force the action here. By leveling up the Hex Drinker, I give them the option where they can either Walking Ballista to kill the Hex Drinker, in which case we're still just attacking him with the Scourge, but now we don't have to worry about blocks. They can dismember the Hex Drinker, in which case they have to chump block with the Walking Ballista. Or they can do nothing, in which case we just like get 2 good attackers. So they think about the dismember, but ultimately decide to go for the Walking Ballista. We get our attack in here. And again, we're just hoping to fade 1 land drop. And they miss it, and we win. So that is match number 5. We are now 4-1. Match number 6. And we win a die roll. Hallelujah. Alright. Opening 7, pretty bad. 1 land, a whole bunch of 2 drops. 6, even worse. No land, a whole bunch of any drops. Third hand is passable. Like we've got threats, we've got Battle Rage, Fatal Push, Lavamancer is a little bit of removal. We're in the blind, so we don't know how much some of these things are going to be worth. Decide to ship Battle Rage and Shadow. So my thought here is we're not dealing anywhere near enough damage to ourselves to get this Shadow online. So it's probably just a liability. If we are up against a creature matchup, then this Fatal Push could be extremely good, and the Lavamancer might even be able to carry a little bit of work. Between the Foothills and the Push, we get a Lavamancer activation, and if it's a matchup where we need to just beat face, we do have just like a turn 2 Tarmogoyf. So we see Plains Aether Vial. So immediately this Grim Lavamancer is looking like an all-star. We've kind of had it in the blind game 1 against 2 white creature-based decks. So Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, is going to meet a Grim Lavamancer. Let's get you out of the way. Crack in. Go ahead and fetch just to get this extra point of damage in. Opponent awkwardly doesn't have a second white source. So cards like Skyclave Apparition are dead until next turn. Fun little trick here of casting Maul and then vialing in a threat before the Maul resolves. I don't think there's a point to that. At least not one I'm aware of. But either way, we're gonna Fatal Push Thalia and swing in. Swinging in with both so we can get this Scourge down this turn. I don't think that holding up Lavamancer activation here does anything that I couldn't do anyway. Like on my turn, I mean. So opponent goes for Field of Ruin. We say cool. Definitely expecting something like Skyclave Apparition here. Find a path instead. Say okay, get us a little damage in. Add Lurrus to our hand. Last turn we could have played the fetch land before attacking. Then we're just like representing lethal if we Lavamancer to shoot them. But it's kind of like a gut feel kind of thing. Like it didn't feel like that attack was gonna go through. So. Alright, so I decided to Lavamancer in response to the Vial here. I don't think it would have mattered, because if there's something like Flicker Wisp, we could have responded to it anyway. Or Skyclave Apparition or whatever. But you find a Skyclave Apparition. And we find another Scourge. So we're going to do that one. Get all of our stuff on board. Just kind of doing it now because of Ghost Quarter and Field of Ruin. Like, I don't really want to get into a situation where they start taking off lands and... yeah. Or mainly for the black sources. So if we go to combat or something and attack, and they go Field of Ruin one of your black sources, then I can't double spell. But if I do it both on my main phase right there, then I can go ahead and get both of those cards down. And if they try to respond with like Field of Ruin or something, I can float mana and play the other one. Alright, so Batterskull was going to be a little scary, but we top deck a Battle Rage. And as the old adage goes, for anybody who doesn't know, Battle Rage beats Batterskull. Some people may disagree, but those people are wrong. Alright, so pick up game 1 over taxes. Kind of feeling in a groove here at this point. Like, top decks are going well. Hands are going well. Get a hand like this where we just got like quick double shadow as soon as they give us a dismember target. Or we can just Tarmogoyf on 2. So, Stoneforge Mystic is much better for us than Thalia here. Because if they'd had Thalia and we had to like go to our turn and not dismember, it would have been pretty bad for this hand. But Stoneforge means I just get to untap, play a couple shadows. And between this fetch land and the bolt, like, these shadows are representing a large amount of damage next turn. And Archon's not really preventing that. So let's get in some big time beats. Get our Tarmogoyf down. I'm not really worried about like a Wrath of God here. They're kind enough to play out to the board for us. I decide to hold on to this K command. They put Batterskull into hand off of the Stoneforge Mystic, so there's a chance they'll get to cast that next turn. I feel like they're going to have a Path to Exile or something here, so the likelihood of us killing them is pretty low, even if we, like, pay command to kill the Thalia, make them discard or something. So I'm just going to play for a little bit of a longer game. Say a little bit of a longer game, like one more turn. And again, not really concerned about things like Batterskull or Wrath of God. So go to this turn. If they block the Scourge with Batterskull, they take 8, gain 4. So theoretically that would be fine, but I'm just gonna take command to Batterskull and move on with my life. Alright, so down goes taxes in match number 6. Improved to 5-1. Now is the last round of the Swiss. And we get matched up against Timu. Awesome. So, for anybody who doesn't know, Timu is a notorious blue-red control player. Has really popularized the Kikki Hestermite Deceiver X Arc, or Kikki Deceiver X Arc combo finish. recently in the blue-red control decks. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. There's a chance he could be on like blue-red through the breach, but blue-red control with Kikki is really where I'm looking. And I think Oboro kind of signifies that he is in fact on a Kikki build. Luckily for us, we've got some hand disruption, we've got threats. Yeah, so in case you can't see, Kikki does in fact give away that he is on a Kikki build. Teferi Mage of Zhalfir, though, is a really sweet addition. So it basically makes it like 3 mana Teferi where we can only play at sorcery speed. He can play his creatures at instant speed. But like this Teferi, Kikki, Cryptic Command, they're all a ways off. So we'll deal with those when we get there. So we're just going to take a Snapcaster, pass the turn. His matchup against us is pretty rough for a couple reasons. One, we get down under everything he does pretty well. So like Cryptic Commands, Kikki, stuff like that. We've already got like a pretty good board presence when those things matter. Two, his removal is like lightning bolts, flame slashes, things like that. And most of our threats just kind of like, I don't want to say laugh at those, but aren't particularly concerned with them. So we Thoughtseize again. Take a Cryptic Command. He's got a Flusterstorm, Kikki, and Teferi. We don't particularly care about any of those. Decide to go for the double shadow here. I could go for the Tarmogoyf, but with this fetch land, I'm just going to try to go wide so that even if he blocks, I'm getting damage through. Does find a Flame Slash. So I'm not killing with a Battle Rage here. I just want to make sure that I don't go to a point where I get like cheesed out by Bolt, Snap Bolt or something. Even though I know he's got none of those cards in his hand. Alright, so he digs, and does not hit. So, staring down lethal on board. That brings us to game number 2. So, sideboarding. Board out all of our Fatal Pushes. I'd rather just rely on Lightning Bolts to interact with like Kikki and stuff like that. We board out a couple copies of Hex Drinker because A, we don't want it bolted or Flame Slash or something. B, we don't want it stolen with an Archmage's Charm. Some of the things we brought in were like Assassin's Trophy in case we needed to deal with Blood Moon or like Ral Zarek, something like that. And we brought in... What do we bring in? Broxa and 2 Assassin's Trophies. And 2 Veil of Summers for 4 Fatal Pushes and a Hex Drinker. Alright, so game number 2. Our opening hand is not bad. We've got Hex Drinker to start getting pressure on the board. We've got Veil of Summer to protect our threats from like Archmage's Charm. So he does have the Flame Slash there, which is fine. Now the goal is to get Shadow down, protect it, hopefully get to this Battle Rage pretty quickly. Decide to go 1 Shadow at a time. The reason for this is if he finds Flame Slash or Lightning Bolt, then I can Lightning Bolt him or Lightning Bolt myself in response. And if he goes like Archmage's Charm, try to steal the shadow, I can Veil of Summer. Like here, he does go for the Abrade. I go for the Lightning Bolt on myself. And from here, it's about not wanting to die to like bolt. Again, bolt, snap bolt, something like that. We go snap opt. I say sure, I'll take that. And then I'm holding on to this Blood Crypt because I don't know if I want to shock it in yet or not. Like if he does something something pretty major here, I can shock it in next turn. And then this is kind of like a call my bluff type of situation. Like I've got Battle Rage, I've got Veil of Summer for a Force of Negation or Fluster Storm, whatever, Spell Snare. So this is why we prolonged this shock decision. Go for the Battle Rage. She doesn't have anything, so we pick up the win there. All right. So on to first round of top 8 against Tom Ross on Yawgmoth. So I'm actually recording this. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick, and we'll get back. Let's get to opening hand. Y'all can check this out. So obviously no lands, not keeping that. Like an okay 6. Decide to keep it, ship an extra land, and I'll be right back. Alright. So, Yawgmoth. A matchup that has plagued me numerous times before. It's a weird one. Like, you've got to put a lot of respect on all of their creatures pretty much at all times. You can't get too low too quickly, or things like Giralf's Messenger become a real problem. The amount of chump blockers that they can produce is insane. Like, you really got to navigate some weird spots. So we both mulligan to 6. Tom's on the play. Let's see what happens. Overgrown Tomb tapped is interesting. So I'm really glad that he doesn't have a 1-drop here, like a Noble Hierarch or a Birds of Paradise or something like that. Because now I feel like I have a chance to regain a little bit of that momentum. Draw second Shadow. Go ahead and Thoughtseize. Important, playing the Nurturing Peatland here because I want to lose a little bit more life for these shadows. And if I start tapping this Peatland on turn 1, then by the time we get to like turn 2 or 3, it's done 3, going on 4 damage to me. And that'll help a lot with getting these shadows online. So, we see Evolution, Hapatra, Strangleroot Geist, Yawgmoth, Young Wolf. So didn't play the Young Wolf on turn 1. Young Wolf and Strangleroot Geist are pretty annoying cards. So ways off of this Yawgmoth. If he rips off a couple lands, he can Strangleroot and Eldritch Evolution it away for a Yawgmoth. But Hapatra is the card that, like, really messes with my hand. I don't have any interaction, and Hapatra just lets him, like, turn all of his -1/-1 counters, which he gets with Yawgmoth, into Death Touch snakes. That's a problem. So we're going to take the Hapatra, kind of hope that Tom maybe misses on his second land for a turn or 2, and we can start to develop a little bit of a board. Which he does miss on his second land, but finds a second copy of Young Wolf. So finding Scourge isn't bad. We'll go ahead and get in an attack here, because if he chooses not to block, I can go ahead and get Scourge down. But he does. And it seems to me like he's paying a lot of respect to Scourge, like I'm paying a lot of respect to things like Hapatra. So we'll get down our shadows, and third copy of Young Wolf comes down. So, not finding the second land, but it doesn't seem to be biting him too much. Alright, so my thought here is I could attack with everything, and maybe I'm supposed to. I know 3 of the 4 cards in his hand. I know he's got Strangleroot Geist, Eldritch Evolution, Yawgmoth. My thought is if I attack with all 3, then he's possibly showing 8 on the crackback. He can block Wolf Wolf, have 3 2/2s plus a 2/1 Strangleroot Geist. And I don't know if that's really where I want to be, because I can't play out this Scourge if he blocks across the board. Which I don't think he'd block across the board, but ultimately I decided to leave the Tarmogoyf back for a turn. As kind of expected, he decides for the double chump. And I go with adding Lurrus to hand here. I can't play out the Scourge since he's at less than since he's at 20. I don't want to waste this Lightning Bolt just going bolt face. And with these shadows, like, I am able to start presenting a pretty good amount of pressure here. So he decides to take this. Means I can just get down threats, pass it back. So here's the Geist. And here's where I have to start thinking about, like, pushing through damage before Eldritch Evolution becomes an issue. We see another Strangleroot Geist on top, so I know he's not drawing a land here, which is important. So he blocks, and now I can play out Luris, get back Bobble, hold up this Lightning Bolt. So I should have everything covered here. He could have third land in hand that he's just like slow rolling, but that wouldn't make any sense here. So his only castable card, I'm assuming, is Strangleroot Geist. And if he goes for Strangleroot Geist, I can like block a Yawgmoth, bolt a Geist, take 2, kill him on the crackback. If he doesn't go for it, I can bolt and kill him. Just a whole lot of options here. There's certainly an argument that those middle turns of the game I played a little passively. Like, I probably could have attacked more aggressively with the Tarmogoyf. To me, at that moment, it just didn't feel like I needed to. Like, I kind of wanted to press the advantage or press the damage with the shadows and take advantage of the fact that he hadn't hit any land drops to just develop my board as much as possible and go from there. Alright, game 2 of top 8. Again on the draw. Sideboarding. Took out Hex Drinkers because they get stonewalled pretty easy. And they're really bad late game against Yawgmoth. Took out Dark Confidant because I don't want to have an uncontrollable life loss in this game. I want to be able to know where things are at most all times. Brought in 2 Soul Guide Lanterns for a little bit of fight against the Undying triggers. And brought in 2 Kozilek's Returns. So a little bit of game against the Go Wide. Helps against Hepatra and her army of snakes. Alright. So this opener is pretty okay. We've got our threat. If he does any damage to himself, we can enable the Scourge without having to throw a bolt at the face. And the important part is this is 2, 4, 7, 10 damage to myself. So for anybody who's unsure about Scourge of the Skyclave's math, if you're at 10 or less and your opponent's at 15 or less, then Temur Battle Rage is lethal. So I've got the ability to get myself down to 10 or less on turn 3. I've got 3 damage to point at my opponent. And if he does the other 2, then I could be looking at a turn 3 kill with a Scourge and a Temur Battle Rage with some interaction. So decide to keep it. And we've got 1 point of damage down to himself. Fire off with Thoughtseize. We see Drolf's Messenger, Twilight Mire, Rankle. Modern Staple, Rankle. Immediately this becomes the I've got to save a bolt for it target. Like, I can't just blindly play out this Scourge and have it die to a Rankle. So I pass the turn back, and this is like worst case scenario for me here is Tom drawing a Mana Dork, because now I can't just blindly play out Scourge on turn 2. Now I've got to sit here and pass, because if I play out this Scourge and he hits the 3rd land and Rankles, I've got nothing going on after that. So he does hit the third land. I'm heavily rewarded for not playing out the Scourge. Messenger comes down. Wolf chips in. So now the plan is I need to get him to 15 or less life. My life total's where I need it to be. I've got Bolt for Rankle. Drawing the second Bolt for turn here is really nice. Because now I can Bolt Rankle plus Bolt him. So if he cracks this fetch land, he's down to 15 essentially. But that Bolt was probably one of the best draws that I could have right there. So I'm thinking Rankle here. But it makes sense that Tom would go for Messenger because I'm representing Bolt pretty hard. And if he just plays Rankle and I Bolt it, then that can cut a lot of the momentum out. So I go through like a super long tank here because I'm trying to figure out, okay, if I Bolt him and block the Messenger, then he's at he's at 16. Messenger's dealing 2 to me. I'm at 5. Wolf's getting in. I'm at 4. And now like these Messengers are lethal. But how is that going to... If he doesn't crack this Verdant Catacombs, then I'm not swinging for lethal on the crackback. What do I do? So, ultimately, I decide to play the kind of best possible outs here. So, if I go Bolt him and block either one, and he goes fetch up basic forest and play something like a bird or a noble hierarch or something, my lethal goes out the window. Because now I've got a 4/4 Scourge or 5/5 Scourge that can battle rage for 15. He's got 1 toughness out on the board. Battle rage is no longer lethal. So I decide to take this 4, go to 3. I can shock in a Blood Crypt to get my second red source if I need it. Like, if he's got Fatal Push, I can't do anything about it. So, Bolt him, no blocks. He fetches, and of course my thought is like, alright, here comes the blocker. Yep. Untap. Shock in. Bolt you. Battle rage. So had the read on the blocker, which is why I couldn't afford to like throw a bolt at a creature or something like that. And get in there with a Scourge. So, very fortunate game. Representing that lightning bolt helped pretty tremendously against the Rankle. On to round number 9. This is the semifinals. Alright, so in the blind, I'm on the play. Its hand's okay. It's got a threat, it's got redraws, bit of interaction. I don't know what my opponent's on, so I decided to keep it. And that's like a theme for a lot of these, is I don't really... Like, I looked up a couple of my opponents for top 8. but usually I don't because results are pretty unreliable. Obviously, if I had looked up my opponent ahead of time and seen that they were on blue-red through the breach, I probably wouldn't have kept this hand. Like, Dismember's dead, Hex Drinker's not exactly a good clock, but either way, that's where we are. We Inquisition, see Charm, Optermand, few lands. I believe I decided to take the take the Opt. Gonna say take the Archmage's Charm, but it makes sense because I can get this Hex Drinker down on turn 2 under the Remand and level it up before he can Archmage's Charm it. So that's the plan we're going with here. Just start leveling up a Hex Drinker and hope that's good enough. I know that he's got the Cryptic Command, so like I need to find another piece of disruption. But at least he can't bounce the Hex Drinker. He can only tap it down for a turn. So this is kind of what I meant when I said that we don't really have a chance against Hardcast through the breach. Like, we just don't have the board presence to sack to Emrakul. We don't have the life total to take 15. So we're just getting like really beat on multiple axes. So here, decide to play another Hex Drinker, level it up. Just have lethal next turn. But in the meantime, Emrakul comes down. I don't know if you know, but they're pretty good at assembling both cards of this combination, even if you take away some interaction. Alright, so game 2. Keep a hand, not this one, this one. So the first hand, we had a couple threats, but nothing really going on. This one, it's not great, but we've got the Triumph, and that's like the big thing here. That's our out. That's our scapegoat for this matchup. So tapped Valakut Stoneforge here. Is that what it's called? Valakut Stoneforge, yeah. Tap Valakut means that I might be able to get this Dark Confidant down and have it live. Alright, come on, Moto. Completely, like, didn't even notice that I drew the Tarmogoyf there. I just fetched Shock Blood Crypt because I was like, oh yeah, I'm on a Rakdos hand. And then looked down after I cast the Confidant and was like, oh, that's a Tarmogoyf. Whoops. So, of course, I'm thinking right here, like, oh, okay, entire tournament's punted away. So, decide to play out the Scourge here because they didn't bolt the Confidant. So, that kind of leads me to believe that they don't have something like a bolt in hand. And I want to get this Scourge down below Archmage's Charm. Naturally get rewarded by drawing the third land. Alright. So, this is kind of an important decision point. I really want to kill them without showing Liliana's Triumph. Because I feel like if I can go to game 3 without them seeing that card, then I have a much better chance. It's not like a sideboard staple of Shadowless by any means, so there's a chance that they're not going to play around it if they don't know it exists. But that being said, they've got a whole lot of ways to not care. So my thought here is I can take Archmage's Charm and just stop the draw 2 here. I could take Valakut Awakening so they can't just like throw away a bunch of extra cards. Like they could bottom Platinum Empyrean, Madcap, something else pretty easily. Archmage's Charm also acts as a counter spell, but it's more this Madcap Through the Breach, Platinum Empyrean kind of thing going on here. So I could Thoughtseize the Archmage's Charm, Thoughtseize away the Madcap Experiment, untap, fetch Shock, go to, was it 14, 12, 9, and be presenting lethal with the Battle Rage. The only issue there is if they like Valakut Awakening into Force of Negation or Spell Snare or something like that, then that plan goes out the window, and then they get to untap and like Through the Breach into something, Platinum Empyrean, whatever. Probably kills me at that point. So I decide that I don't think I can really win here. I don't think I can 100% win without showing them Liliana's Triumph. So I decide to go with this funky line of take Valakut Awakening and then Thoughtseize again, because I think they're going to Archmage's Charm this one. And sure enough, they do, but they draw cards. I wanted them to counter so I could fire off this Veil of Summer. Thoughtseize, see Aether Gust, Madcap. Decide to take the Madcap so that maybe I can present lethal next turn again without showing this this Liliana's Triumph. Let's get rid of these extra cards. Alright, so I know they've got Cascade Bluffs, Through the Breach, Platinum Empyrean, Island, Aether Gust. Or they played Island, Aether Gust. So I know 4 out of their 5 here. The problem is with this Aether Gust, now I can't Battle Rage for lethal. A bunch of Tarmogoyfs don't really do much for me here. So now they're gonna get to see Liliana's Triumph. I know they have the 5th land in hand. And this Emrakul is going to get through the, or this Platinum Empyrean is going to get through the breach at some point. So I do have the thought here of maybe I don't play the Triumph. Like, they're going to Through the Breach in the Platinum Empyrean at some point. But they have Cryptic Command, which means that, like, I have to show them Triumph now. I can't get around it. Like, we're down to 7, so Through the Breach in a Platinum Empyrean is lethal. Or they just find a Madcap Experiment, so either way, lethal, have to show them Triumph so that we can win. And they die. Yep. So, obviously, Liliana's Triumph gets a lot more awkward going into game 3 now that they've seen it. So I've got to make sure that I'm kind of staying on top of keeping the board clear as much as I can. I can't let any Snapcasters sit around for a long time. So opening hand has got a Triumph. As an Inquisition, couple 2-drop threats. We only have 1 land, but we do have a couple redraws with Bobble, plus we're on the draw. to essentially get 4 looks to find the second land, which is fairly good odds for us. Pick up second copy of Triumph, which is nice. I don't know if y'all have noticed yet, but I see these cards a lot for only having 2 copies in the deck. Alright, do pick up the second land. Their hand is pretty slow and clunky. And they're also just like drawing more lands here. So I feel like I'm in a reasonable spot as long as I can get some pressure on the board. So the hope here is we get in an attack with this Tarmogoyf, and then we can get Scourge down and start swinging in. Here's Tarmogoyf. Down Scourge. And decide to go ahead and get down Shadow as well. Like if they get a Lightning Bolt here or something to take care of the Shadow, that's fine. I know that they have the Cryptic Command, so like the goal right now is just to dodge dodge anything that would like stop me from attacking for too long. Like I just want to make sure that if I get an attack in, I'm doing a reasonable job of presenting lethal. There we go. Cryptic into Cryptic. Now things are getting pretty dicey because like I'm not getting this lethal attack in. My opponent's not losing any life here, not getting closer to killing them. Now we're getting to the point where like Snapcaster gets way better, because if they're able to snap a Cryptic, then not only are they stopping me from killing them, they're also getting extra bodies on the board, which are making these Triumphs significantly worse. That's what we're seeing here is Snapcaster tap the team down. So I'm not playing out this Hex Drinker because of the life consideration. If I play out the Hex Drinker and level it up and I need to Liliana's Triumph, I have to like double fetch and shock to do it. Alright. Moment of truth. This is why I held up these double Triumphs for so long. Any counterspell kills me. I don't know anything in their hand now. We're dead to like 90% of magic. First Triumph, pretty easy sack of the Snapcaster. Second Triumph, clench every muscle in your body, and they sack the Emrakul. And we say, oh my god, it's a Christmas miracle. And walk away with the win there. On to round number 10. Yeah, we did win the die roll. Again, don't know what my opponent's on. Have a hand with some Hex Drinkers and slight interaction. So I decide, alright, I've got games 2 and 3. We can give this a shot, see what happens. Like either option number 1, Hex Drinker is phenomenal in this matchup and we run it over. Or option number 2, Hex Drinker is terrible, we lose horribly, and we go to game 2. So, Verdant Catacombs into Blood Crypt with Thoughtseize immediately makes me think that it's either traditional Jund, which I am shocked if traditional Jund made it this far. Or it's a shadow mirror, which would be much more likely. Decided to drop the Confidant down there because they didn't kill my Hex Drinker turn 1, which makes me think that they might not have an answer to it. They show the Dismember, so it is a shadow mirror, which means I'm just going all in on this Hex Drinker. They can play a shadow or a threat here, but I'm just going to kind of flood the board. Not flood the board. I'm going to flood this Hex Drinker with counters. How about that? So, opponent sees that this Hex Drinker is going to be a lethal attacker next turn. Decides to scoop it up. Go to game 2. And who's ready for the most anticlimactic finish in all of Magic history? Game over. That's it. Opponent does not want to play it. Scoops up. We move on. And for anybody wondering about the sideboarding choices in the mirror, things like Veil of Summer, Assassin's Trophy, Kroxa, Triumph, Tend the Pest, K-Command, like all these are likely, not that, these, all of these, get out of here, Kozilek's Return, these, all of these are likely coming in. Things that are coming out are usually like Lavamancer, the Inquisitions, usually all 3. Seal of Fire, probably Dismember, because I think it just gets replaced by better spot removal. Battle Rages, and then maybe some number of Lightning Bolts. But that ends our challenge run. So let's look at the list. See if there's anything that I would change going forward. For the most part, not a whole lot. Everything felt pretty good. Grim Lavamancer was an all-star in the matchups that we saw it in. Obviously, we didn't know that those were the matchups. So it just happened to be coincidence that we saw Lavamancer when we did. But other than that, it's been performing very well for me, so I think I'll keep it. Confidant's been an all-star. Absolutely plan on keeping him in the deck. I've liked the 3 Hex Drinker over the 4. I don't like seeing them in multiples, but I usually like seeing one just about every match. Dismember was okay. I still think like any piece of spot removal here would be fine. So like Dismember or Assassin's Trophy. Kroxa would be fine. Red and 6, whatever. Not a whole lot of win percentages gained or lost by that one spot. In the sideboard, obviously Triumph was fantastic. If Blue-Red Breach continues to be a deck, I think I'm going to keep a couple copies of Triumph around for a while. Trophy is still one of the better spot removal spells we have access to. Kroxa, K-Command, Tend, and probably Soul Guide. Like, none of these really did anything this event. So if you're looking at trying out other sideboard options, I think those are some of the first spots I would look at replacing. I kind of like having them just for the sake of diversity and having something against a lot of those matchups. But if we don't see them, we can't really say they're great in those spots. Kozilek's Return, like one of the better answers to Auriok Champion. I think it's pretty well cemented itself. And Veil of Summer, I think, has been an all-star. It's still kind of in that grouping of cards we didn't really utilize this event, but it's not one that I want to cut from the board. So that's kind of where I would start. Those are my thoughts. Yeah, hope everybody enjoyed watching. If you have any questions or comments about the deck list, feel free to drop a comment down below. Other than that, we'll probably be going back live sometime this upcoming week. Still got a little bit of the lingering COVID around, so trying to take it easy. But I appreciate everybody who's been checking in and wishing well. So hopefully we can be back live pretty soon. Other than that, hope everyone has an awesome rest of their whatever day they're watching this on. And yeah, we'll catch y'all later. So take it easy.